The CHIOPT XTREME Zoom 28-85mm T3.2 is the first lens in a new Extreme series. Extreme is a contemporary cinema lens series that will consist of multiple full-frame cinema lenses. CHIOPT is a Chinese company that has been around since 2012. They mainly specialize in making industrial and security lenses. They have now decided to branch into making Cine lenses. We have seen a few affordable Super 35 Cine zoom lenses come to market, but very few full-frame options. The only other affordable option with this type of focal range that covers full-frame or larger sensors is the new DZO film Kata 35-80mm D2.9 Cine zoom lens, however, that is currently only available in Sony E-mount. If you are a relatively unknown company and you are going to launch a new product into a sector where people have never heard of you before, then you need to make a good first impression. The lens comes in a nicely presented box, and inside that box is a custom hard case. This shows that the company is serious about what they are doing. One of the biggest caveats of using a full-frame or larger sensor digital cinema camera is that the lenses become larger, heavier, and have reduced focal ranges. This is especially true when it comes to Cine zooms that cover large image circles. The CHIOPT has a focal range of 28-85mm, which is reasonably decent given its size and weight. CHIOPT has gone a different direction from DZO Film, which has chosen to make lighter full-frame Cine zooms at the expense of increased focal range. The lens covers image circles of up to 46mm, so it can be used on all of today's modern digital cinema cameras. The CHIOPT Compact Zoom 28-85mm T3.2 tips the scales at 2.7 kg or 5.95 pounds, PL mount. This is not a light lens by any stretch of the imagination, however, as far as full-frame Cine zooms lenses go with this focal range and constant d-stop, it is fairly similar to other available options on the market. The CHIOPT Compact Zoom 28-85mm T3.2 is very well made and constructed. The outside of the lens casing is a hard metal and it has been designed in a matte black finish to avoid light reflecting off it. The focus ring is nicely weighted and the operation is very smooth. The zoom ring is more heavily dampened than the focus ring, but this is fairly common with Cine zooms because you don't necessarily want to accidentally bump the focal range. The iris is nicely weighted and I found it easy to use. There is a built-in lens support adapter that takes a 1/4 20-inch thread. CHIOPT doesn't list how many groups and elements are in the optical design. The lens has 9 aperture blades. Instead of making two different versions of the 28-85mm D3.2, CHIOPT has placed the metric scale on the left side of the focus ring, and the imperial scale on the right side. This is a little strange and something that DZO Film also does with its Kata zooms. A PL native mount is standard, but there are also Canon F and Sony E mounts available. CHIOPT states that other mounts will also be available in the future. Matthew Allard ACS of the new shooter tested out the lens by doing large focus throws, and while there is a very small amount of breathing, he says the lens is also very well contained. As the lens covers a 46.7mm image circle, when you use it on a full-frame size sensor you get very good illumination across the entire image. Matthew Allard also says he didn't see any vignetting when shooting 6K 17:9 full-frame on the Kinefinity Mavo LF. When used at various d-stops at 85mm, the lens is not that sharp when used at T3.2 and T4. If you want sharp results you need to use this lens at T5.6 and above. At 28mm the lens was a lot sharper than when used at 85mm, especially at T3.2 and T4. At 55mm it is not as sharp as it is at 28mm when used at various d-stops. Matthew found that the lens is certainly a lot sharper at wide focal lengths. At mid to longer focal lengths the lens is certainly softer, especially when used wide open. He reached out to CHIOPT to ask about the lens being soft at longer focal lengths and they told him that they are aware of that issue. We hope that maybe in the future products we're going to see improved changes. The lens is capable of producing some interesting flares, especially when used wide open. The lens doesn't have a lot of real-world visible chromatic aberration. If you zoom into the image by 300% when used wide open at T3.2, you can see a small amount of color fringing on reflective surfaces and overexposed areas. The small amount of chromatic aberration is impressive for a lens at this price. The bokeh produced is reasonably round and there are no signs of onion rings. At 28mm there is some fairly noticeable barrel distortion. If you look at the edges of the frame you can see how straight lines are bending. The CHIOPT XTREME Zoom 28-85mm T3.2 is fairly neutral when it comes to the color tone. It may lean a little more towards cooler tones. The color tone of a lens is something you should look at closely if you are going to be using both prime and zoom lenses from different manufacturers. Certain prime and zoom lenses work better together than others. What will work for you will also depend on what camera you are using. The CHIOPT 28-85mm T3.2 is a well-made full-frame Cine Zoom that would be right at home on cameras such as the Sony FX6, FX9, Venice, Red V Raptor, Ariel X Mini LF, Canon C500 Mark II, Kinefinity Mevo LF, Edge, etc. The lens is nice to operate and use, and the mechanics are good for a lens at this price. The CHIOPT Compact Zoom 28-85mm T3.2 will retail for $2,899, which makes it an incredibly good value for money. It will be officially announced on the 15th of February. The lens comes in a nice custom hard case and inside you get the lens, a set of shims, an M3 and an M2 hexagon wrench, a zoom rod, and 2 supporting screws for the foot. CHIOPT also has plans to release a 75-250mm T3.2 full-frame zoom as well as 24, 35, 50, 75, 100 and 135mm primes. The CHIOPT XTREME 28-85mm T3.2 is a good option if you are looking for a solidly made full-frame Cine zoom with a decent focal range. Yes, the lens isn't optically perfect, but that is always going to be the case with the majority of budget-friendly Cine zooms. The CHIOPT has a much more usable zoom range than the DZO film, but that does come at the expense of weight and physical size.